Hey everyone, Sandy here from Bella Rose Quilts. Welcome to week 5 of our Sew Delight Mystery Quilt-Along. I hope you're following along in our Facebook group and seeing all the cute quilts that everyone's making. On week 5, we are going to make the log cabin block with a little variation. We put a half square triangle in the middle, which is what you learned in week 2. We just made it larger, trimmed it down. We didn't use any paper or anything because I wanted them all to be different. So you're going to learn to make this log cabin the traditional method, where we cut each strip the length that we want it and you sew it together, which works. It does work. We also are going to learn to use the log cabin trim tool from Creative Grids. It's the 8.5 inch. And what this does is you make it larger and then you trim it down. You actually trim it 3 different times. You have rounds where you trim it, and I'll walk you through that. Also this week, I did show you some sewing at the sewing machine, hoping this helps you get accurate straight seams. And so this is what it's going to look like right here. And you can see this is where the log cabins are. It's making the little triangles out here. And we're over halfway through, so let's get started. So on week 5, we're going to be making a log cabin block. I'm going to show you the traditional method, which I have all laid out here. And I'm going to show you the Creative Grids log cabin method with the ruler, which is what I used for my blocks. Let me show you some of my blocks. So you can see there's a half square triangle in the centers, and they're scrappy, just like I did my other blocks. My ornaments. And you're going to need a total of 10. So I already have 8. And now we're going to work on 9 and 10. One I'm going to do with the ruler and one I'm going to do the traditional method, and I will point out why you might like one better than the other. So this goes in the center, like that, and you're going to start sewing with this to this. So I am going to go over to the sewing machine now and show you how I do that. Okay. So whenever you sew a log cabin, you always lay your strip down and then lay your block on top of it. And as we move along, you'll see why. One of the things that people do when they do a log cabin is they don't start straight here at 1/4 inch. They kind of curve their way in. So it's a good idea to use a leader and a follower, because then you get that nice straight seam there. These are cut to size, the exact size you need. So I'm just going to start sewing my 1/4 inch seam. Cut my thread. Now, some people finger press. I do not finger press. So I could have put a follower in there, but I didn't. So I run over to, I have my iron set up right here. I press it closed, press it towards the last one I sewed on. So next is going to be J. And this is cut the exact size. So I'm going to lay this down. My strip, I'm going to put this right on top of it, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. Whenever you sew a log cabin, this last strip you sewed on is the strip that you want facing you, and whatever color this is the color you're going to be sewing on. So I'm going to be sewing on a light. Just go ahead and sew this in there. This off, and then I'm going to press it right here. And so this is going to go down. This is green, so I'm going to take my green. My green's going to go here, and I'm going to sew my 1/4 inch seam, being careful not to curve that first start. Let's press it. So you can kind of see the little warp here. That happens when you're sewing. And that's a lot of the reason why people do use the ruler, is because you're going to trim this off every round. But let's keep going. So this is the green, straight, there's no seam. I am going to put this strip down because this is green. Sew green on, line them up. Line these up. I have what's called a hover feature on my machine, and every time I stop, it raises the presser foot, which is really nice. So this is the last one I sewed on. There's no seam. If you see something like this, you know you're wrong. So this is white. So I now know that I am going to sew a white strip on. What should be this one. Line up the edges. Follower in there. The follower, remember, is what keeps your seam straight when you start, so that you don't veer off. Press it. So this is the last seam sewn. It goes down. There's no seam in here. And I'm going to sew a cream. So far we're doing good. It's staying to the exact size. You can pin it if you want to. I don't pin it. Just depends on how comfortable you are with sewing this block. So. This is my last seam sewn, and so the next color is going to be green. Looks like a block I used before. I stick it in there. I want to start off at a really accurate quarter and end at an accurate quarter. This is my last one. So I'm going to sew green, and it is going to be this green here. Always make sure it fits perfectly, and it does. Last one, green, so this one's cream. On my last round. Cream, straight line, no seam. last 2 rounds. Green. Last one. No seams. Is our block right there. You can see that I was a little short here. Probably all of the addition of the seams adding up. I sew a skinny 1/4 inch. Okay, so now that we finished sewing the traditional method, I am going to lay the Creative Grids 8.5 inch ruler on it. And you can see that it comes out pretty good, cutting each piece the exact measurement. I'm just going to trim off a little bit there and to make it the 8.5 inches. And I will be using this in my quilt because I think it turned out pretty good. Probably wouldn't have used 2 colors next to each other, but I did. And so next we're going to be doing the method where we use the half log cabin ruler, and we're going to sew 1 round and we're going to trim it up, then the 2nd round and trim it up, and then the 3rd round. And essentially what you do is you line the squares up on each round in the center, and I'll be showing you that. So this is the one I made using the ruler. So let's go on over to the sewing machine and see how this works. So when I use a log cabin ruler, I don't cut each of my sections to the right size. I just have strips and I sew it on. I don't use my leaders and followers or leaders and enders because I start sewing off of my block right there, and that acts as it, and so I know that I have my nice 1/4 inch. I'm sewing all the way down. Cut it. And what I do is I trim a little bit off here because I don't like that hanging on, and then I will press it just like I did before. And I don't want all this bulk in here, so let's cut it off a little bit more. So this is the one I just did. Same thing, goes here. And I'm just gonna get another strip. I could iron these, but as you can tell, I'm probably not. And I start sewing on the strip, come down. I can trim it right about here. And I'm going to trim off this one. Then I'm going to press it. I'm pressing my seams towards the strip, just like before. So this is the one I just did. And so now I'm going to sew green on. So I pick a green one, and it really doesn't matter which green. I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to lay it down, put my strip on top of it, start sewing on the strip. Even though this is larger, you can see where the 1/4 inch seam is. And you want to make a really nice 1/4 inch seam. You don't want to be curving or anything. Cut this off a little bit smaller. I want to get rid of those strings. I'm going to press it closed, press it open, and now I have another green. So let's do something fun. And what I do is I line up my whole strip right here. And I'm going to start here. This is my straightaway. So I've sewed on my first 4 rounds, and this says round 1. So I line this up here, and there are several lines on here that you can line up. You have a line here, a line here, a line here. You have this line, and you're just gonna make sure that this center square is lined up in the center of that. That's your centering square. And you're gonna cut 2 sides. You're gonna turn it. You're gonna line that center square up again, super easy. And I like to look at all of my lines. I like to make sure that I have my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go sew on the next round. So it's the last one I sewed, so I'm gonna sew cream. I've already started sewing on my strip. So I know I have a nice 1/4 inch going. This is perfectly square because we just squared up all the sides. Probably should clean the starch off my iron. Lay this one down. I'm gonna do another cream. Do little circles. Nope. Do these. I'll do candy canes. So I'm gonna start on my candy cane. I'm gonna slip this one under my presser foot. All my edges lined up. Trim, press, so this is the last one, green one. Let's do this. I'm going to start here, slip this one underneath. That's one sewn, so it's going to be green. What do I have for a green? Start here. So you can see I'm lining up here. This whole side is going to be nice and straight because I just trimmed it up. So I have on 2 greens, 2 greens, 2 creams, 2 creams. So now we're on round 2, and it says round 2. I am going to line it up with the center. I have a line here, a line here, a line here. You can see how perfect it looks. And I'm going to trim off 2 sides. Turn it, line up the center, and the other 2 sides. Now we're going to sew on our last round. And sew. Press that one. Probably trim this off a little bit. This was my last one sewn. So next I'm going to sew on a green. Find a fun green. Let's see if this is long enough. It is. So we need another green, and let's see. Let's use this green. And I'm going to line this up down here, and that'll line up perfectly all the way down. I'm going to iron it, and then we're going to go trim it up. So here we are, here's our block, and now I'm going to line up the center square of round 3 right here on my half square triangle. I'm checking out all my other lines and it's looking good. And then I'm going to turn it. I can see I have all my 1/4 inch seam allowance, everything's lined up. And there is our perfect triangle block. All 10 of them. Well, I will see you next week for week 6. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate it. Come out and join our Quilting with Sandy Facebook group. We have a lot of fun and I want to see your blocks. Follow us on Instagram and have fun making your quilt. I'm enjoying it and I hope you are too. See you next week.